There we go. There we go. Hello, Erica. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I was just thinking about you. I wasn't thinking about you yesterday because yesterday was a difficult day, but I was thinking about you today.
Well,
Well, it just seemed like it was an odd day. So I want to ask you, how was yesterday for you?
um, how was yesterday?
Was there any difference for you between a normal day and yesterday? Any oddity, unusualness?
Yesterday was a Wednesday.
It's too long ago, says Erica.
Nothing like hugely anomalous.
It just seemed, again, not for everybody, but I noticed this before. I call them sunspot days. They definitely seems to have an effect sometimes. And some like, but other times, I don't know whether there are sunspots or not, but it just seems so. So, people were they were a little excessively discombobulated or immersed more into their stresses and troubles and stuff. So,
I've been excessively discombobulated for the last probably 4 or 5 days at this point, so yesterday was no different.
Okay. So, well, that fits the pattern. That I just may be connecting with the people, but yes, for some of them, it's been a little, couple of days, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I
then I just, were connected with them yesterday, but absolutely, yeah, yeah. So
keep
that's
saying,
interesting. And for me personally, I was really feeling it, and I didn't want to go to sleep, so I was just messing about, not really doing anything. So I was kind of tired, but I didn't want to go sleep. Absolutely not. And so I'm just kind of killing time, and then about 11:30. Oh, okay, now I can go. This thing change.
oh, there you go.
Change. Yeah. Yeah. So that was rather interesting. That's why I ask. I don't always know how much to put onto these things. So I continue to study and gather data. Um, it's just intriguing to me. But the key point, though, that I do want to mention is that typically when we feel, our first instinct and reaction is to, and of course, from our perspective, we want to do this. We want to take responsibility for things, right? However, the discombobulation may not be entirely internally generated.
Mm-hmm.
It may be partially, but also it may not even be. It may entirely be not internally generated. What we are responsible for is how we respond, right? So two factors come into play here. That when we feel it can be from, yes, our attitudes, beliefs. That's the primary source of, typically, but occasionally it's the body, and occasionally it is completely external and random.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not okay. I'm feeling because I'm watching a TV program and it's very emotional, whatever. Okay, it's duh. But sometimes we have no understanding where this comes from, right? So it's unaware, non-obvious, random, external.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to keep in mind that this does and can happen, because if we make that misassociation, so it's me, we get into all sorts of complicatedness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now your premise, your base premise is false, and everything that follows, of course, you end up creating all these theories and things, and they're all false. And emotionality too, okay, it's not an issue for you, thank heavens, and I hope it never is. But menopause,
Mm-hmm.
both male and female, it's typically just people think it's a female thing. No, it's both. But you have hormones surging and stuff that affects your feelings and moods. That has nothing to do with you. It's
Right,
totally not rational and logical, right? I mean, pregnancy does the same thing. Yes,
right.
cravings, mood swings, all this, hormonal shifts. So we have to be aware of this. Right now, part of that randomness may just be more subtle, in that just your diet, for whatever reason, things are changing and you get some changes. But still, I just wanted to mention they're very powerful factors to take into cognizance. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that, what have you been thinking about? What have you been feeling about? Let me ask you that.
Um, oh gosh, what have I been feeling about? That's a good question. I was going to say, with thinking about, I came across a really interesting section of the latest Eckhart book that I've been reading that, I mean, I keep saying that what he talks about aligns so well with Way of Impeccability. Um,
Yeah.
but this particular section was really well aligned specifically with what we have been talking about in Hearing and Helping, which
Fantastic.
I thought was really
Fantastic.
interesting.
Yes.
He was talking about making space. Uh,
Wow.
and so I brought my hard copy up with me.
Fantastic. Oh, I love this. Oh, I love this.
So it was so fascinating. I was listening this morning. I thought, man, I mean, he's like spot on with what we've been talking about with making
Wonderful.
space. And so it was really interesting.
Wonderful.
Let's see. Yeah, I think it's this section. Yes. Okay. So yeah, this obviously he's using some sort of different terminology, but to me, this was very much related to capital H helping and making space. The section is called right action. So he's talking about how to use making space to sort of determine what the appropriate action is.
Wonderful. Real quick, is the right action? Does he have right livelihood, etc.? Does he go through the others, or is this just on its own right action?
Yeah, a really small little
Not
section in the
connected
middle
to the
of,
Noble Eightfold Path, in other words.
yeah, it's a really small section in the middle of a larger chapter.
Ah, I see. Okay. All right.
Um, so he says, presence is a state of inner spaciousness. When you are present, you ask, how do I respond to the needs of this situation, of this moment? In fact, you don't even need to ask the question. You are still alert, open to what is. You bring a new dimension into the situation, space. Then you look and listen. Thus, you become one with the situation. When instead of reacting against a situation, you merge with it, the solution arises out of the situation itself. Actually, it is not you, the person, who is looking and listening, but the alert stillness itself. Then, if action is possible or necessary, you take action, or rather, right action happens through you. Right action is action that is appropriate to the whole. When the action is accomplished, the alert, spacious stillness remains. And this part made me laugh. There is nobody who raises his arms in a gesture of triumph, shouting a defiant, yeah! There is no one who says, look, I did that. All creativity comes out of inner spaciousness.
Wow.
Then he goes on into something else. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It fit really well with what we had been
Ah.
talking about with
Ah.
making space. And it really reminded me a lot of what we had been talking about earlier in the Hearing and Helping program about if you are really attuned to the situation, if you are capital H hearing, if you're really focused on listening, then you don't need to worry about what action you're going to take because whatever action is needed will just come
Yeah.
up as appropriate. So
Yes.
it's really
Yes.
interesting.
We make space for appropriateness to present itself.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm doing a repeat back of what you're saying, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's such a big deal, is it not?
It is.
That's so cool. That's so cool. You know, in terms of attention and how things come and connect, and we see it elsewhere. You know, and that he mentioned this and right action. You know, right action is such a big deal. It
Mhm.
is such a big deal, is it not?
It is.
I just, I always enjoyed that the Noble Eightfold Path, but you know, only in the conceptuality of it, though. Other than that, it was hard to get a grip on practical application.
Interesting.
Right? So, you know, it's right action, right livelihood, right thinking, right meditation, stuff like this, right? But what does it mean, Buddhist guys? You know, that's it. That's as much as you got. Really, was just the conceptuality of it. Now, this is largely also a translation problem
Right.
and a sophistication problem. because when you actually go into, you have to kind of dig and really work for it. You go into the more literal translations of the original Sanskrit and the writings on it. Then you see the layered sophistication and complexity, and you start to get, you say, oh, here's depth, and what's said, and what the translations typically, it's like, no, dudes, you're missing this completely. So it's very much a translation error, problem. But also, I found that even when the translations were better and were good, the language was still a back then language, and you can hear the difference, and it just fails to connect. It just fails to resonate with us. Our brains are, it's like they've moved on. And it's like you using like you're trying to program in Pascal, or whatever. I don't know if you remember Pascal from way back then, or Fortran, right?
Yep.
And it's like, yes, those are still valid languages, obviously, but somehow it just doesn't click in the brain, you see. And it won't resonate with the software today, because much of the software is written for it won't resonate with the hardware, because much of the hardware is created for the program for software. So yeah, it's really interesting, that the language has a tonality of the times. You can hear that, and if it's missing, you don't get there. Eckhart is interesting also, just to mention as an aside, that uh, well, more lately, especially with you now, but even so, I heard Eckhart, I see people quote here and there, but I sort of been aware of him now. You bringing him, but more into prominence. But I avoid reading Eckhart. You say, but why? Don't you want to learn? And yes, I do. But also, I find that I get compromised. And in this, that in order to truly read Eckhart, I have to fully immerse into Eckhart, and then I lose what I'm immersed in, and this is quite compromising for me. Yes, and so because now I have to shift into his modality and his mindset. Now, yes, I have that ability to shift out of it, but if I truly want to fully absorb what he has, for me, I have to do that immersion to give it full measure. Otherwise, I end up, saying, yeah, but or saying yes, okay, and then in the end, I end up with a lot of stuff in my head, which is the same as what I'm doing. But now, when I share stuff, I kind of feel like I'm plagiarizing, and I don't want to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because my head tends to hold on to conceptualities, rather than words. But also, sometimes if somebody's saying something in a nice way, it sticks, and I remember that because it's useful. And then when I'm writing, I don't even remember where it comes from. It just comes out, which is good, because I've internalized it. I've made it my own. But if it's too fresh, it can, somebody else, oh, that sounds like Eckhart. Well, it could be, but so that's, it's very interesting to me. But also the time consumption, I find I have to really immerse so much into it that I'll probably spend, like Bean and I are reading, just, it's 85 pages, that Birth of Tragedy. I don't know if it's the whole book or just an excerpt, but either way. I mean, we've just started, and we still, just gone a few pages in. When you do those capital R readings, it takes a long time. So yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting. So, when I shifted from, after my big reading project, where I did all that immersive into it, and I shifted to application, I found that I have so much to apply that I just don't ever get to saying, well, I need to add more to my application list. It just seems a bit pointless, right? Yeah.
For
It's
me,
very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
is application. It's really
Correct.
interesting.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I
Correct.
have a
Correct.
different experience. That's interesting.
Correct. Correct. That's why I mention it, because it is so very different. Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I was mentioning it now, and because yes, it's an anomalous thing for me, because just the output has changed it for me. When I started outputting, this shifted, and I really said, no, I can't really go there, because I run this risk of not only getting lost in that and losing what I'm doing and losing my connectivity, and now I end up essentially saying what I'm reading, and through my lens, which I want to have it come from a non-connected application overview, abstract overallness, which is really interesting, to take that bigger picture perspective. But otherwise, I get lost in the specific applications. So yeah, it's just it's an anomaly, just anomalousness. I thought just for
Yeah.
interest sake.
Yeah.
And you were saying about how you've been feeling.
I'm not thinking of anything that's unusual, out of the ordinary for what I've been feeling. I mean, I think I said the last few times I've been feeling a lot of ease, a lot of peace. I'm finding a lot of joy. I mean, I'm feeling really good. I don't think I have anything new or exciting or interesting to report from the feeling category.
That's where we want to be at. This is where we're heading, is to this, just that bliss of life. Yes, that communion with life. Yeah. This is too wonderful for me. It's too wonderful. We make space and all that comes into it. It's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very cool. All right, let's continue with what we're doing, because I'm actually keen to get onto the next section, which is so appropriate. As you'll see, everything builds on itself. Oh, this is not where I want to be. Just sorry. The Zoom stuff covers things, and then you try and click, and then that's not what I'm trying to do. Trying to minimize these things, Zoom. Oh, well, why don't I just bring up what I want to? Okay, there we go. Okay. So I do like the background here, the art. I don't know if it's a photo or art, painting. I don't know, either way. But you know what fascinated me was this fallen tree.
Yeah, I like it.
Seems like there's a couple of them here. So, I like that oddity. All right, just a couple quick points here. Sharing is a mechanism to mourn us beyond what we can attain individually. Absolutely. Impeccability is the compass of mourners' exploration. Absolutely. I don't know why it says also Sue unedited. May have somebody else said it too. I don't know. I was pondering this earlier when I pulled up the slides. We lose out immensely by not seeing the mourners of others, when we don't make space to be surprised by what we don't expect from those we otherwise must perceive. This last quote here is so absolutely just the essence, the potency. That's what you were saying the other day. But when we do that, oh my goodness, it's a gift that never stops giving. Yes,
absolutely.
All right. Let's run through a few of the recap slides. There's a lot of them, and maybe we won't do all of it unless we feel like we really are getting stuff out of this, right?
Okay.
Because I feel that you have really ingested and imbibed and infused into you this understanding of making space. Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said last time, that yes, it's a big, long module. It could be split into two, like a capital H hearing, and it is so because it's so important, but also so nebulous that on the surface you don't quite immediately go to all the nuance, but yet it's there. So it's really fascinating to me how that is, that they are so subtle but very powerful. All right. So what do you read, please? I want to pour my coffee.
Sure. We are in capital H hearing mode, which also creates space for release. We create space for release from convention, space to repurpose expectations. Our release is a release into moreness. We make space for replacement. Our space makes space for trust. Trust and hearing are based on impeccability. Trusting the other's intent to goodness is essential.
Yeah, most essential, yes?
Definitely.
Most essential. Yeah, wow, I actually was enjoying that, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Emphasized appreciation has made space for being more, for sure. We're communicating with our very being. We're making a space with who we are. Our trust here is a function of our confidence. We're confident in the specific circumstance because we're in it deliberately. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Specific circumstance because we're in it deliberately. Yeah, I like that.
Well, think of it in the case of it's interesting. One of the group members, a Facebook friend, they've adventured all over the world, and John Cooper, and he's actually making a course to connect this to corporate, to getting starting a new job, and he's saying, make the job work for you rather than the other way around. But his key focus is on this adventuring attitude. Right now, we've had adventure as capital A term. We've spoken about it. It comes up a lot. So the idea of adventure is this deliberate, right? If I'm doing adventuring, I'm deliberately going into the unknown. And
Right.
now I have some confidence because I'm doing it deliberately, right?
Right.
So we can apply this very specifically. So he's making a course on this, but still, it's very cool. It's very cool to say how our confidence is leveraged by our deliberation. And in the specific circumstance that we are making space in, again, because we're doing it deliberately, it adds and leverages. We can leverage our confidence.
Okay.
Yeah. Very cool.
Our confidence is based on our capital H hearing because we have complete trust that what we need will come.
Will come. And that's the bliss. When we combine capital H hearing and making space, and with this, and that we aren't sitting there waiting for something, what we are communing with, we have made a space to be in space of world life peace, right? So it's a different application of making space, but then we are just communing with the moreness, with enoughness. Yes. And that's precious. That's very, very, very precious.
True. We completely trust who we are, and that's enough.
Is that so for you, Erica?
Yep, it is. We're confident and humble at the same time. Our confidence is based on our realness of being because we can't doubt ourselves if we're real. We make space via our being, how we are, our intent, our energy, via all of ourselves.
Yes. I want to go back to that. Our confidence is based on our realness of being because we can't doubt ourselves if we're real. Now, this is in a very literal way, in that, if people see themselves, their perception is, let me bring the phone closer. I don't know if you can hear me all that well. Their self-conception, their self-perception, if you were to project it, like into a hologram machine can tap into your brain, it would be a bit flickery and insubstantial, a bit ghostly for many people, right? Or half or partial, right? So, of course, if this is how you see yourself as not being quite complete and balanced and enoughness, then you're going to have doubts. Yes? But if that realness of being is actually real, well, then you're saying, well, I'm a real person. There's no doubt here of me. Now, does this mean that I can't have doubts about my abilities, how I'm going to deal with something? That's a different thing, because now we're dealing just with variables. And, I can't say for sure how things are going to turn out because, well, there's uncertainty and variable involved. This is just honesty, right? So it's not the same. We're not saying we're eliminating doubt entirely, but we can certainly eliminated in ourselves. Yes. Yeah. I mean, because to say that I don't know how I'm going to react, I don't know how I'm going to solve this problem, that's just honesty. Yes. It's not really doubt. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't know, I don't know. I'm not doubting my abilities, right? If I can do it, I can do it. If I don't know how to do it, I can't do it. Doubt is not an issue. It's just simple, statistics, really. Yes. Yeah. So it's a subtle point, but very powerful. It makes a very big difference. And to really understand that and feel like we are real, we have substance. This is important. Yes. When it comes to our psyche, that our psyche has got a solidity to it. Our psyche has substance. Our character has substance. Yes.
True.
Yeah. 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 Very cool. Very cool. And this is a very big shift. I mean, let me put it this way. I would say, at least from my perspective, if I now speculate internally about Erica Jayne, right? Now, it's a very dangerous thing that I'm doing here, and I don't often do it, but I'm going to do it for purposes of illustration and feedback also, and probably some more stuff. But anyway, to say that if I were to speculate about Erica's internal state of being, and to say, how does Erica feel about herself? Does Erica think that herself, her psyche, her character, her moreness has substance? I would say absolutely, right? You don't think you're an insubstantial person, right? That's a very different thing to saying I'm a good person.
Right.
Right? I can be good and substantial, or good and not be that substantial. I can be a good person, but be a little, well, not shallow, but when I'm not into the deep stuff, okay, yes, that's what you see on the surface. That's all it is to me. That's it, and that's not a negative. It's not at all. That's just some people are like that, right? And they're quite happy being that way, and they're honest about it, and they know that stuff. But there you go. Don't expect more from me. I don't have more to give, right? And I'll tell you this, and that's fine. That's cool. So being substantial isn't necessarily said here in the context of we should, just what you are. That's it, right? So I think this is a big point. This is a very big point, and that leads to a piece of being. Yes, because I do see those that do feel a little bit substantial. They tend to be a bit insecure.
Right.
Or a lot insecure. Yes, they're happy and they're good, but it's surface. It's surface. They don't. It's not. So they're but vulnerable to environment. Yeah. But when you're substantial, that's it. It doesn't matter really. You just enjoy, and you have that peace, that bliss of being, which is very, very powerful. All right. Please read. Please read. Yeah.
Who you are matters, not what you know.
Sure. That if there's sort of one of those things that you want to put out into society today, right? To say, dude, it's who you are that matters, not what you know.
Absolutely.
And they can't get this in their heads. Our whole education system is premised on the inverse of this, sadly. And if the education system could shift to this, make all the difference.
True. We make space with our realness and the fact that we are the ones actually doing something. Yeah, I like that. We've taken a stand, a capital S stand, which claims I can, I will, I am. The stand we have taken has implications. Those implications make space. Interesting. Our intent, our deliberateness, our power decisions are what creates and makes.
Say that again. I was turning the volume up and it made a noise at the critical time there. So repeat the last one, please.
Our intent, our deliberateness, our power decisions are what creates and makes space.
Yes, yes. So, this point of making space, though, it's a very deliberate action, but it's a deliberate non-action action,
Okay, yeah.
right? I mean, in this, that you are, how do you create space? By definition, you can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, space is always there. You can't make space. You can remove things, but you see what I mean? It's kind of like a bit of an inverse logic to it. So, when, yes, you may remove things, but when there's nothing there in the first place, we are making a space that is a particular space. It's not just an empty space. So, yes, it is in a way empty, but also it has a mood to it. It has a boundary. It has a shape. It has so there's a lot of deliberateness and intent involved, right? Our power decisions, they create space. And again, the stand we have taken, which is the stand that I am here. I am here for you. I'm here to listen. I'm here to make space. I'm here to be appropriate. That's a stand, and that has many implications, and those implications make space, right?
Sure.
So we are dealing very subtly, very nuancedly, and very sophisticatedly, communicating, communing, and interconnecting. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
We've decided to be in a particular way. This particular way is making space, not only for others, but also for our own moreness.
Yes. And I feel this for Erica Jayne most important.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Patience, discipline, forbearance enable timing.
Just a process we go through, just have to say. And when we understand that it enables timing or creates timing, or it makes it easier to be patient, to be disciplined, and have forbearance, because you know what you're doing. There's a point and a purpose to it, right? And that was yesterday. Absolutely, it was all about patience, discipline, and forbearance, most decidedly. It was yeah, yeah. I'm still exhausted from it. Yeah.
We actually already made.
Ah, oh, okay. Sorry. I think we are going to come to this in future modules. But there's making space, and then there's also giving energy, and it's an additional thing on top of it. So that's why. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
interesting. We actually already made space by claiming who we've decided to be, and now we're inviting others into our space.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of those perceptual, contextual nuances that are profound, absolutely profound. And just this one awareness changes everything, because all of a sudden it's like you flip that light switch, right? And it's like bzzz, the energy goes on, and you have your force field around you.
Yeah.
It's like, holy moly, wow, 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 wow. Now I'm inviting you into my space. And again, not you can, it's like there's a space, and you walk into it or not, right? To invite somebody into it, this is a profound thing. When I accept your invitation, I also accept the conditions that go with it, right? I've now put the onus on me to respond appropriately relative to the invitation. So it's very, very subtle, but boy, does it make a difference, right? So this is why it's so important. And we have this in our common behavior. Somebody comes to your door, and they don't come in until they're invited,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, even it's your friends, sometimes they'll kind of stand there. Oh, come in, okay. And you don't even notice it. It's very subtle, but it's there. And that invitation is very important. And the acceptance of the invitation is very important. Yeah. It's a subtle point, but man, it's huge. Okay.
The space we've made is created by our claim of humble authority.
Yes. I absolutely love this compound conception, and my bad, yeah, sorry. Or humble authority as a concept. It's too potent for me. It is too potent. It is too potent. Yeah.
Our humble, impeccable claim of being, claim that we are capable of hearing and more, enables confidence to share and be in others.
Right. So yeah, I'm thinking of someone like Sher. Right? Maybe not right now, but when Sher first started with the coaching, right? She was keen to get into it, keen to give back, motivated by that spirit of, hey, you know what, I want to do something for others, not knowing what to do with herself in a sense. Okay, also economics come into it, but mainly that the desire to share and communicate. But she's aware that she doesn't necessarily have the content. She's very aware of this, right? I've got a lot to learn. Oh my goodness, I'm talking about when she first started the coaching now, 2-3 years back now already, right? But in this, that she could say, look, all I know is that I am capable of hearing and a bit more, maybe making space. And that's enough to give me the confidence to be in a, like in Sher, to be in a client circumstance, right? That's it. And just that confidence now leverages the hearing and the making space. When somebody believes that you have some value to give to them, even though you don't say a word, it changes their mindset. So that confidence is very important, but the confidence can simply be based that I'm capable of hearing and more. That's it. And I don't need to have specific content and experience and history. No, I can be very confident on that and that alone, right? Can support my confidence, in other words. It's a very powerful point. Again, it can apply, of course, in any circumstance, not just for coaches, right?
Our claim of being and the confidence which flows makes space for the release of reservations and restraints of being for all involved.
Yeah. Because you aren't going to release if you're in the company of somebody who is uncertain and insecure, right? And I don't mean confident in the sense that I've got answers for you. No, I'm confident in my being, my claim of being. That's a very different thing because it's the confidence of trust and safety.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. I love that. I love that. The smile that said yes, the more. Yes. Yeah. Too beautiful. Yeah. This. By the way, Erica, let me get out of screen share. Yeah. Where's my controls go? They're gone. I can't get out. Oh, I'm trapped. I can't. I don't see them. I move my cursor and they're not coming out. It was underneath the gallery pictures. So I want to say that, because of the perception of nuance and detail, and everyone being the capstone of a pyramid, when I'm interacting, very few people am I really eager to engage with where I see them.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because in your case, that capstone leads to a beautiful, magical moreness. But is this so for most? Sadly, no. Right? So when I see your pettiness, when I see your spite, your meanness, your crappiness, your desire to say me, and all this other shit, it's like, fuck, man, and I have to work to not show this, no? And it's like, it kind of breaks my heart sometimes a little bit. But if I'm not seeing it, I can filter through the hearing, and it's a lot less, which is why hearing is so powerful, because we don't get overwhelmed by the filter. It's really fascinating. This came up yesterday. I was explaining to Sher about the computer model of self, right? And she said, well, what would awareness be in that? She couldn't quite say, well, awareness is your RAM, right? This is what awareness is, memory being the hard drive, right? We tend to confuse the two. So RAM is the awareness. And of course, when you go sleep, our conscious awareness goes away. And yes, the computer does, while the computer also sleeps in a way, right? And it does defrag the hard disk and whatever stuff, right? So, okay, that's dreaming. All right. But the point, and I mentioned that sort of surprised her, was when I talked about GPUs. She wasn't aware of a GPU. Why? Well, GPUs came about because of gaming.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because gaming is so visually intensive that it needed an extra processor to deal with the visuals. Our brains are the same. Right? Visual is our predominant input, and so we have specialized brains to deal with it. And because of this, we are focused on the visuals. If you literally look at gamers, oh my God, I've got frame rates. My frame rate is down to 53. Oh God, this is the end of the world, 53, dude, I'm lucky if I get 35, never mind 53. So, anyway, they really hung up about the visuals. And so it's a big deal, but they miss stuff because they're so focused on the visuals. It's really fantastic how they can't play if the visuals aren't to their specifications. I mean, they get lost in it. So people are the same way. We get this visual predominance, and because of that, we overload and we process, and we miss the underlying abstract moreness, because it's all about the visuals. I told you about the person from my high school, right? The last 2 years of high school. Well, I only knew them in the last year. And I asked them, what do you remember about me as a person? And they just said the visuals. Yeah. I'm like, hello. Well, again, when you listen past this, they were a bit obsessed with me. So I don't think they can say anything about my character or personality, because it may be a bit embarrassing. So, it's just fascinating, though, how visuals is such a big deal. But then again, Bina said maybe they were obsessed with you because the visuals were so impactful on them.
True.
No. And there I was in complete ignorance of all of this. But anyhow, I had just no clue. But it's fascinating to me how we are visual. And when we put it in the context of the GPU. Now, the magical part of the GPU is well, my video card unfortunately died. I had a high power video card. And when you're not using the visuals, and you, like when I'm rendering something, the CPU can use the GPU as an additional CPU, right? That's another part of the capital H hearing, that I'm now, because I'm not connected to the visuals, I can use all of my brain to process and analyze and render. Yeah, isn't that cool? So this is something that if ever you feel like doing something and making a course or something, that would be something we could do together, is just write out this computer model. It doesn't have to be a course, but to delineate it in detail. Yeah. That's what I mean? And that would be very cool, because not everybody understands computers enough to know the nuance. Right. And you don't have to get really into it, because you want to have it, but a bit layman, like in this case. But when you bring this concept in, a GPU, what is that? Okay, graphics processing. Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. Now it was so impactful on her. She asked for this. But I don't know how much interest you have in such stuff. You got too much to do. But I'm just saying, it's something. It could be. All right. Where are we? I have to screen share again. Oh, that's right. I went to the next slide, but then there was no screen share. So. Too wonderful.
Okay. Where did we leave off?
Number 2.
Okay. We deliberately make space for exploration by inviting another, especially a client, to jointly explore with us.
Right. And yeah, I love the power and potency of nuance. Come into my space and we're going to share. What are the implications and connectivities, like my background, right? All it's connected, right? And they side things and, all, right? What are those when it comes to sharing? Well, for most people, sharing is like unburdening your heart and telling your sob story and whatever. Yes. But when we say, we're going to explore, wow. Oh, okay. This is a whole other attitude, mindset, and a consequential set of actions that are implicated and brought to the fore simply through that slight minute shift and tweak. Yes. but to be aware of those, because we come into an interaction and we have a default, and others have defaults. And if we don't deliberately, consciously make a shift to that, we don't even have to say, but this is the making space that we are going to shift those defaults. Right? And it's very subtle, but all of a sudden, we're exploring together. It just changes your interaction profoundly, right? Because suddenly you brought newness. Sharing, where's shareness? Where's newness necessarily in sharing? It's not necessarily so, right? It's fantastic. So this is, I should put explore in italics, yeah. Right? Yeah. Actually, I think even both of them in italics, yeah. I'm quite fond of italics, by the way. Well, emphasis.
Right.
It changes everything, right? Because to me, that's why I felt I needed to say more, because I didn't feel it was emphasized enough. But now, okay, I'm a bit more satisfied. Yeah, I'm enjoying the backgrounds, by the way, very much on these recaps.
Me too.
I just noticed they're pretty cool. Yeah, subtle but nice.
Excuse me. Okay, the space we make enables release from many unwanted and undesirable mindsets, behaviors, etc.
Yeah.
Something floating around inside of my eyeball now.
Yeah, I get that too. I feel like stuff's flown into my eye, and or crawled in or something, and I didn't see it go in. I didn't feel it go in, but now I notice that it's there. Yeah.
Yes.
It fascinates me. Yeah. I saw a thing once somewhere of this girl that tear ducts created these kind of like diamond type crystal things.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder, though, it feels like something went in, but I wonder if the eye isn't generating and creating it.
Could be.
In terms of like it's a way to flush certain things.
Could be.
Yeah. Or that there's not, maybe the eyes are a bit dry. So what would typically get washed out in little bits, now it's coming out slower, so it tends to coagulate and then come out in it. All right.
We make sure the space we've made enables others to shift away from usual, not so helpful ways of being into new possibilities of understanding.
Right. This is huge. You shift the paradigm of interaction, of comprehension, of beingness, and everything changes. Right there, everything changes. This, to me, I feel is the biggest problem for writers, is the paradigm. People come into books with expectations and paradigms, and they read it through that lens, and they just miss your story entirely. Eckhart, this was, you were saying the picture of the book in the trash can. So it's kind of mean, but it's genius in a way as well, right? But that's the problem. It's that shift to that particular, and that's why I was saying I avoid reading Eckhart. Okay, Eckhart now may not be the best example here, but just in general, because I have to shift my entire frame of perception to make it appropriate for what I'm reading. So in likely with Eckhart, there's not a big shift there or no shift needed. I don't know until I do it, but then somewhat, you find out too late after the case. So anyway. But yeah, that frame of perception, boy, it's huge, huge, huge. Or the paradigm. Yeah.
Our invitation is an invitation into joint exploration.
So key. So key. It's not like I'm just going to sit here and you're going to be doing all the work. No, we're going to doing this together. And that's safety. I'm not willing to go out into the wilderness on my own. Oh, hell no. I don't go out there enough to, okay, I trust myself, but at the same time, I'd rather go with somebody who's been there regularly, especially if it's, a real wilderness. No, sorry, thank you very much. I want somebody who's been around. So the joint makes a difference. Plus, when you are truly venturing out into the unknown, just companionship makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
You just feel, now it becomes a joy rather than sort of a struggle and a stress. It's astonishing how much that makes a difference. Yeah, it's a very big deal. Shame, I have a friend whose lifelong partner, they always did stuff together, but the partner's in their own bubble, and sadly the partner's a bit of a BMN, just very into their own stuff only, and it's become obvious now. It wasn't before. They were focused on believing stuff that isn't so really, but making the best of it. And yes, the other person, but now it's sort of become clear where the person's really at. And boy, they struggle to even work. And this is somebody who's like a really hard worker, one of those people who and it's just everything is a grind because they feel like they're in it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't have that. Are we in this together? You don't have to be doing anything. I know I have the same thing. I can work like a ridiculous bastard when I just feel somebody's with me. You can just be hanging around, just whatever. You can be, painting your nails. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, doesn't matter as long as you kind of with me, at least in spirit. Yeah, I did a lot of writing in that way. Where the person they're not really listening because they're working as well on the computer, but I'm sending it to them in chat, and I feel like I'm doing it with somebody, and they liked it every now and then. They'd look and read it, and it was kind of helpful to them. So I have that legitimization of it being something that somebody wants. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. But yeah, it makes a very big difference. So joint exploration, massive, 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 big deal. Massive, big deal.
Oop, there we go. We assist rather than help, as assisting is a joint coming to resolution.
Yeah, and this is just the subtle nuanceness of language and implications with language, right? I mean, technically, help can mean assist can mean help. They can be synonyms, but depending on where you go in the range of meaning for help and assist, they have quite a broad range of meaning. You can take it either way, but in general, I feel overallly help is like, I'm stuck and, I can't get out of the hole. You reach down and you give me a hand to get out of the hole, right? I'll pull you out. That's help. But if you're going to assist me in getting out of the hole, you're likely in the hole yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? And now I'm standing on your shoulders. You give me a leg up, whatever. So there's a very slight shift in nuance between help and assist, right? Help being that the person does more for you. Assist is we kind of doing this together. Yes? Yeah, 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 yeah. It's really interesting. I think surgeons, if I get in a surgeon to come and help me on an operation, right? It implies, yes, I can't do this on my own. But if they're assisting me, well, I can do it on my own. They're just making it a bit more fluid and easy, right?
Right.
It's nuanced, but it's a big point. It's a big point to get into this because, like, sure, she wants to help. It's so deep in her, and to get into this assist rather than help, it's a big, 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 big shift. Yes, massive shift. We get, out of telling, we get into sharing rather than telling. Help, we tell. Share, we assist. Yeah. All right.
We're focused on assisting learning by oneself because that's the only real learning. We're making space where exploration will be safe, comfortable, and fun.
Yes. Yeah. So moreness versus unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. The client or another are the only ones who, in the end, can know what they need.
Yes. Now, somebody may take issue with that and say, yes, what about, crazy people, brain damaged people? Yeah, all right. In general, yes,
Right.
And you may extend that to severe ignorance.
Mm.
Right? Somebody in the end can know what they need, but that's in the end of where you go through the path of awareness and you've seen all the bubbles. But yes, certainly when you're stuck in a very small bubble within a collection of bigger bubbles, you may think you know what you need, but not be aware of what all the options are. But that's why it's in the end. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're venturing into new awarenesses together because this is a safer, more fun, and more effective way to learn and problem solve.
Yes. And just because of of the variety of perspective. That, when we look at art, one person sees one thing, one sees another. And when we combine those, that collaboration, it gives me a more, I didn't see that. I didn't think of it that way. Oh, okay. Right. So this is always, you get more when doing it together. But of course, when you're doing it together, as in true together, it's, I think, why that was emphasized, rather than, for most people, they automatically compete. Even looking at art, oh, I see this. And, if they're in that superiority paradigm, now I've got to come up with something in common. I'm also going to come up with something profound. It's like, come on, really? Is everything a competition? It's so wasteful, that logic and that mindset, right? It's just terrible, and just too terrible, unfortunately. And I see the limitations of this, where people get stuck in this competitive mindset, and they just don't realize how limiting it is. Yes.
We share the magical joy of exploration. We have a sophisticated understanding that most of us already contain what we need within us. Our exploration is an invitation to practice.
Oh. It just slips in there. It just slips in there. But man, that's huge, no?
It is.
It's not just exploring, but practice also. In our exploration, we are going to practice. This is huge. Yes, huge, huge, huge. Like you said, when you read Eckhart, it is application for you. Yes, yes, yes. It is, it is, it is, it is, it is. That's so huge. That's so huge. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Man, 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 man. Wonderful, wonderful.
We share and communicate the joy of practice.
Yeah.
Practice is when we are deliberately learning through repetition and adjusted change.
Yeah. Yeah.
We use our demeanor, attitude, mindset, emotional stability, expectations, equanimity, force of awareness, deliberate mood, sober positivity, and of course, our intent to make space.
Yeah. Now, when we were saying about Erica Jayne and Erica Jayne's bliss and Erica Jayne's substance of being and enjoying your substantiveness, do you feel you possess equanimity?
I do, yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely you do. And for me, this is, again, if we look at the kind of a before and after, this equanimity, it's a very subtle point. Somebody, if you were to make a list of things about yourself, that might not be a word that pops in there, right? But it's a word that if I said, make a whole long list of character things and said, circle which of these apply, you would circle equanimity.
Right.
Yeah, it's not something you might not come up automatically. It's a powerful, powerful concept, equanimity. It's a huge, huge, huge concept. Yes, and peculiarly, or interestingly, that equanimity comes very much into play when we can unhook from equality.
Right.
Right. So I can have equanimity and not be an equal to somebody that I'm hanging out with, right? We're in no way equals, and understand this not in a hierarchy term, but simply say, we're completely different people, right? And we get equanimity by unhooking from that equality paradigm, which so can devastate particularly partnerships, relationships, right? Intimate relationships. This idea that we need to be equals, it's horrible idea, because of course you're never ever going to be exactly equal, so you're continually striving for an impossibility, and it's debilitating, it's negative, it's draining, it's a complete waste of time. Have equanimity and life is easy. The whole thing goes away, right? I'm enjoying your spirit's reactions, public through. Too wonderful, too wonderful.
We share an awareness of what's possible, even expected, what could be, what's encouraged, and what's okay to be, to do and be.
Mm.
We create space where complete honesty is a relief and joy. We completely focus on the more, never the less.
Yes.
Maintaining.
You know, I see there's a comma there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We completely focus on the more, nevertheless, but no,
Oh,
comma. Yeah, yeah. I
main,
was listening. I'm turning my head because the phone is right here, and sometimes I don't know. I just don't hear it. So and then so, you know.
I like it.
Mm.
Maintaining our positivity is essential despite what negativity might be shared.
Yeah,
Encouraging sharing and coming to clarity is what we emphasize.
yeah,
Sure. That's the last one on that slide.
yeah. Encouraging sharing and coming to clarity. Yes, yes, yes. You know, it's astonishing how many people do not feel that they are entitled to share.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like it's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is part of our deeper, nuanced, sophisticated awareness of being, is to be aware that some defaults are thoroughly irrational and illogical.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes. And to take that into cognizance, like in this case. But why would you not feel like you can't share? It
Mm-hmm.
makes no sense. But if we have this a default that, well, things that are, they are because they make sense, and if they don't make sense, then they aren't. That's a deep flaw, right? And this, I see people get stuck. They cannot perceive what is illogical and irrational to them. It is the core to preposterousness and the deep BS. They cannot comprehend that somebody can be so outrageous, and so it doesn't exist for them, and they have to fit it into the package of their reality. So it's a very, very big deal to really do that. Yeah, yeah. Very, very, very powerful.
Unbiased reception, sobriety, is crucial.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's part of our bias, is to expect things to be logical and reasonable. It's a real peculiar bias. But when we understand that, the world doesn't always work the way we think it does, then we can be even more unbiased and be open to when people aren't coming from and I have this particularly with myself.
Mm.
I don't always make sense to myself.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
that how
And
we
so,
whoops.
sorry, I was going to say, and that's both a positive and a negative. Sometimes my irrationality, my illogicality is coming from a moreness paradigm that I've as yet shifted into. Other times it's coming from a lessness paradigm. It's like, yeah, seriously, get over this now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's important to know that it can come from both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How we are and our intent make an enormous difference.
Yeah.
We pay close attention and are aware of what we communicate via our awareness.
Mm.
We trust others to ask what's needed.
Yeah.
Making space for understanding, for recognition, for realization, for self awareness, for figuring things out, for coming to clarity by oneself is critical.
Right. And then the by oneself, of course, is a very critical, nuanced thing. That doesn't mean you're going to do it alone. Yeah. Not at all. Not at all.
We aim to provide real and lasting help.
Yeah. Help should really be in brackets there, maybe. But all right.
Our space enables a place where it's understood Persistence and perseverance will lead to resolution.
Yes. Yes.
Like it. We make space for our client or another to be different.
Yes. And I do feel that you are in a space where you can be different. You may not choose to be so because there's no need to do so. There's no appropriateness to it, but you can, should you choose.
Right. Ah.
I mean, for all I know, when you alone at home there, you might be doing all sorts of things and being different. I have no idea what you get up to when you right. I'm just saying, I certainly feel that you can, whether you do or not, I don't know. I hope so. I imagine so, but yeah. While that made me think of art, that when we are connected to art, this is an environment where being different is very valuable. Yes, you kind of put yourself into a different space. Yeah, I'm having fun with the art, and it's inverse art, in a sense that my art is elucidation. My art is expressing, connecting to moreness, bringing that moreness into articulation, elucidation. I always thought of myself as an elucidator, not as a philosopher or a psychologist or anything, but as an elucidator. This is, I feel my deep innate skill. But now, instead of taking the elucidation and creating the art, I am utilizing the art to bring out the elucidation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No. No. So it's an inverse process, but nonetheless, I've got to be different in order to have that come through. Yes, I can do it when I'm focused and I have an intent, but when it's sort of more in a connected way to the art, then it's a different process, and I have to be different. It's very cool. Very cool. So, by the way, the background is. I'm trying to remember what I called it now. Character, about character, the perception, character building constructs in process.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. I like this idea that our character is, yes, it's got these beams, it's got this strength, but okay, this is still in process. We're building it, like this one. I don't know if I'm pointing my finger, showing it or not, but let me get out of screen share, and then I don't know. Do you see my cursor move now? No, you don't, right? Right. Anyway, but you see, there's that beam up at the top there. Well, actually, you do see my hand points to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, this is like a beam that's folded back on itself. It's like, hey, what happened there in my character? It's like, I'm not so sure, but okay, and others are, they're not complete, they're not finished. But then, you've got this bridging that happens sometimes, and the connectivity, and then all these tendrils, these lines, soul stitching. And this came up in one of the other artworks, the soul stitching murmuration, which is very cool. So you got the soul stitching that binds it all together, and that's what we're doing, right? We are taking this in the end process, and of course I like this too, that it's showing movement. We're coming from somewhere and we're going somewhere, and there's that tightening of it as we process. Now, this may be fairly early in the process, or but I feel that this is a process of strengthening and tightening, and tying it all together, right? And that our character, yes, it's interconnected, but it has that solidity and that substance, and this is the process, and it's a powerful process. Yes. So I really enjoy doing this, to find elucidations of what is pre-existing. Yes. And so I feel that part of what I feel my art is the art of curation, which I've applied for a long time. Now I'm just a bit more actively involved in the process. But when I make my posts, sometimes mostly I spend more time finding the art to go with the post than it takes to write the post. Yeah. So again, that elucidation of problem. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, I just thought it's very cool because when we have a visual of character building, it's kind of nice in a way. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy it. All right.
Okay. Yeah, we make space for release of moreness, possibility, and new ways of being. We make space to be surprised by what we don't expect.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's an important one.
Mhm.
That is an important one, like you were saying on Tuesday, right? This unhooking from expectations. Oh my goodness, how powerful is that? Yes.
Really
Yeah.
big. It's true. Sharing is a mechanism to moreness.
And joy,
Mm-hmm.
depending on who you're sharing with.
True.
Sometimes sharing can be hard work, but yeah, I mean, really, it's sad, but that's the reality. That sharing sometimes is, you would think it would be easy, but no, it's not always. Yeah. But when there is openness and the disconnect from expectation and receptivity, oh my goodness, sharing is the most incredible joy.
Yeah, it's true. Making space is a big deal, which changes enormously how interactions take place.
Yes, 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 yes. And what really so intrigues me is how little, how tiny, how absolutely simple it is. That one little tweak, and suddenly it's a whole different thing, right? This is to me the incredible thing. I saw that in and just like that, it snuck up on me, right? Yeah, me being a bit naughty. Cool though, cool though. But this came up in the Therese incident when I first came to be acutely aware of queuing, and how it was inadvertent. But man, this girl's whole life was being affected by it.
Right.
Uh, it's- the horror of it. Yeah, it really affected me deeply. I literally changed my whole life as a result of that. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Paying exquisite attention. Yes. 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 I want to let the graphics show. It's Erica. Attention to attention itself, to its implications, its consequences, its effects, leverages our attention into more, leverages us into more, leverages us into responsibility and ethics as we realize how much attention is power. Big deal, big deal, big deal, big deal.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Look at Erica Jayne saying, thinking about this, staring off into the distance. Yes, 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 yes. Does look a bit like you, right?
I can see it. Yeah.
I mean, it could be some artist, okay, they got a glimpse of you and they met you once at a cocktail party and then they drew you. Yeah?
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly obviously there, but in the moreness of it, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, when I look for art, and particularly art of faces,
Mm-hmm.
um, I spent tons and tons. I mean, probably months. If you add it together, of time looking for faces that represent way of impeccability
Mm-hmm.
and nobility. And this is really, really hard to do. When you look at art of female faces and you say, you see the crappiness, you see indulgence, you see spoiltness, especially in beautiful women. You see it in the lips so often, you see that spoiltness. It's like, come on, or this, the sort of modern stuff of, pushing yourself out and all this. I've got to push myself out there. This is what's expected of me. Conventionality and should. You see all this nonsense. So it's really hard to find faces. And that's why when I'm saying it's you, I don't look at the physicalness. I'm looking at the mood, the qualities, the underlying of it. I mean, that's just how I perceive the world in general. So I'm seeing things in abstract, not in the actual physicality. Like if you had to ask me to draw you, I think if you had to go in a brain snapshot, it's like, man, this guy's seen Erica Jayne how much on Zoom, but yet he doesn't have a clear picture in his head of her. No,
Right.
because it's abstract, it's conceptual. It's a much more potent way of perceiving, no?
True.
At least for me it is. At least for me it is, because I'm seeing what really matters. Yes?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm saying, this is like, I often say, oh, I've got the Erica Jayne picture because of that deeper abstractness. Yeah. All right, I'll read a little bit just to give you a break. Reading takes a lot of energy, right?
It can, yeah.
And this kind of reading, I mean, where you're really thinking. Our first and foremost responsibility to another when engaging is to give them our full attention. Why? Why is this so critically and imperatively important? Well, duh, kind of, but it's so. Let's consider what happens if we don't give our complete attention. What are the implications and consequences? First, our sincerity, commitment, genuineness, realness, and interest are all questioned by implication. Trust itself is diminished. Since trust is always imperative in an action, this we cannot allow. Doesn't matter what the circumstances. Maybe it's somebody at a bus stop, yes, or at the DMV. Yeah. So I feel this particularly when dealing with bureaucrats. I have found it unbelievably effective.
Yeah.
I have really cool interactions with bureaucrats. Yeah. It's surprising so, because I'm not doing anything different to what I do with everybody, but because they never get it, it is profound to them by contrast, right? It really jumps out. And of course, when you're giving this, they feel like you even though I'm just standing in line and I'm saying yes and I'm filling in the form, they feel for those few seconds or minutes, they feel real. Right? I'm treating them as a real person. I'm seeing them as a real person. Boy, I'm not doing it to get that effect, but just because I'm now paying attention and I'm aware of such things in general, I cannot avoid seeing how consequential it is. So of course now I have an extra bonus joy to say, wow, you know what? For a few minutes, I'm adding a bit of moreness into this person's otherwise dreary job. Yes. And that's it. I haven't changed what she's doing, but just to feel a bit like you're real, not even appreciate it, just to feel real. Somebody's actually noticing you. It's all it takes. It's so little, and I'm not doing it deliberately. It's inadvertent, but yet the effect is profound. Yeah. Our attention creates an environment, a space, a most important space, all by implication. It's just what I was saying, actually. I find it so fascinating how my examples always get in, I'm just the top ahead of the queue. Yeah, because it's consequential to me. They follow. There's a thread, right? When you think things through, more comes from more. It's like, duh. Our full attention is critical because of implications. Full attention implies we are invested in the other, invested in what they say and share, invested in how they are, what's going on with them, their coming to resolution, their process, their needs, wants, desires, their goals. Our attention ensures and confirms these are important to us. I should emphasize us. This I cannot emphasize enough. I had two spaces at the end of that sentence. Holy moly. So it affects the shaping, of the. So this is so important, right? Because this particular program, I am not keen to share with everybody.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes and says, "Hey, I want to do this program," you have to really convince me that you're not a BMN in any way.
Right.
Yeah. It's dangerous stuff. Yes. Because just this paragraph, you see how BMNs have clicked onto this, and it's like they've got this, and you can almost see that greedy. Oh, you know what? Yeah, they've heard it from somebody. Yeah. If you do this, then you're gonna. No, sorry. But of course, they misapply it always, and because it's not genuine, they can fool some who aren't paying attention. And the desperate especially get fooled by it because they don't want to see it's not genuine. They want to believe, right? So they take it as genuine, knowing it's not, because they're desperate for it to be genuine, right? And that's how they get away with it. Yeah. Our full attention communicates we are genuinely interested, which of course we absolutely are, because this is absolutely who we are. and what's of interest and importance to us. We are very, very interested in others. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, the middle paragraph is dangerous to the BMNs. The last paragraph is the safeguard, because a BMN will never give you their full attention. They cannot, because it's on them.
Right, right.
Always there's a part that they cannot give full attention. It's not possible. Really fascinating. Really fascinating. Poor BMNs, what a dreadful existence. Truly, I really, when I see people like Trump, I say, what a horrible place to be in. Would I like to be in this? Hell no. Hell no. I know. It's just the horror of it is, it's terrible. Full and complete attention is a communication all by itself. What a line. What a line. What a line. What a line. You know what? I don't always pull out the quotes, but in this case, I do need to. I mean, there's so many, obviously, but that just struck me. Full and complete attention is a communication all by itself. Yes, that's something Biala would say. Yes.
Sure.
By implication, full attention is what's necessary for the other to feel heard. I'm distracted by what I want to say about Biala. The power and potency of alter egos is ridiculous. Because, and this is a us point here, because our lives are so connected to profound humility, that we struggle sometimes to express things which might be perceived or seen to be as making us look good. But if I say it via somebody else, no problem. Right? Or show it in her way of being. So in other words, I get to vicariously be me in ways I cannot necessarily do. Now, does that mean that everything in Biala is a meanness? No, not necessarily. Yes, in some way, yes. But I can also experiment, which I also can't do. So, having this is a very, very powerful thing. So it's very, very key, and of course, there's Ursula, many characters, but it's a highly recommended thing to do. Particularly like in your art as well, to have that where you're expressing it via something. Very powerful, very, very powerful. By implication, full attention is what's necessary for the other to feel heard, to feel appreciated, to understand that they do have value and worth. By implication, they do matter simply because of the fact that we are paying them full and complete attention. Now, if I go into computer brain, the super technical, like logic, say, well, you know what, dude, that's not actually technically so, right? It's not technically so. It's so by implication, but it's a powerful implication nonetheless, because it just, in terms of our human psychology, we tend not to give full attention to something that we don't feel has value. Yes.
Right.
So this is a big deal, and for me, when we understand that moreness is intrinsic in everyone, right? Now, some of them, that moreness is way, way, way deeply buried, and I'm not interested in exploring anal cavities and caverns and things to get to that moreness, but it's still there. It's still there, right? It's still there. Yeah. So it shifts the understanding and the connectivity to humanity in general, right? It doesn't make me blind to the lessness, but it's a distortion, not an intrinsic inherentness, right? Yeah. When someone receives full and complete attention, which is real and genuine, and that's critical, they become enabled when it comes to sharing and communicating. Attention thus removes many restrictions of interactions. This just made me think now, that last point that I made about this one here, that moreness is intrinsic. Have you ever bought a computer that is intrinsically evil?
No.
No. It doesn't exist. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a good computer either. But by design, your computer is designed to be beneficial and good and more and have potential. I'm saying before you load any software onto it, right? Its design is geared to producing value and benefit. Right. So when you get a distorted computer that's that is completely messed up, this is a radical distortion. It's not inherent in the original intent. And I'm talking about the hardware now, yeah, right, without any software. And that this is one of the, a subtle implication of the computer model that we don't necessarily think of, right? Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. It's really fantastic. Yeah. When we see those distortions. All right, will you read, please, Erica?
Yes. Well, I wish whatever was in my eye would quit poking me.
It's interesting, the eye thing, because this is, throughout the day, I'm constantly clearing my eyes to make my eyes feel fresh and open. They feel like they're not fully open, they're not fully fresh, so I don't see properly. Right. I mean, it's not like things are fuzzy, but it's like when you got sleepy eyes in the morning, it changes your psychology. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a big issue. It's a very big issue. Right. But all right.
How can we leverage ourselves to give full, complete, and undivided attention by connecting lack of attention to unimpeccability, uncaringness, phoniness, sloppiness, rudeness, impoliteness, etc.?
So, do you realize what you did there? That was like, it's a question that has the answer built right into the question.
Yeah.
Like, dude, really, why did you bother to put the question mark? But yeah. Yeah. No, it is valuable, but that's the point, is to recognize the donors of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What happens if we don't have trust in our interactions? I thought the point you brought up earlier about how people won't feel comfortable really sharing if we don't have or are not displaying the confidence in ourselves and our sort of self-trust. Correct. Was an interesting point along this line that
exactly.
I think from an over humility perspective, those of us who have struggled with that tend to think about the negative sides of confidence in terms of what that can bring to a situation, or overconfidence, what that brings to a situation. But that's an interesting point to me, that if we don't show some sort of confidence or trust in ourselves, it may other people not want to trust us, and so they won't.
Exactly.
Why would other people trust us if we don't trust ourselves?
Exactly. And you bring up a beautiful conception, right? The negative side of humility, or over humility, to be precise. We say, well, but how can there possibly be a negative side to over? There are, in this particular instance. So it's a beautiful, you came at it from the inverse, but it's like, wow, I never really thought of it in that way before. That yes, that there is a negative to over humility. Yes, we've discussed this particularly, but in your particular connectivity there, it was fresh to me. It really jumped at me to say, man, this is a huge deal. Why? Because of the leverage in the previous point. It is a way I can leverage myself to insist on being confident where I might not have the enthusiasm or motivation to be confident, but to say, whoa, wait a second, I need to be so, because this is service to another. Right. And that's important to me, to be of service, yes? So that if I don't have this, I'm going to have a negative consequence, and this I can't do. So now I'm leveraging my excessive humility to get me to be confident. Without that leverage, I'm not wildly motivated to be confident. It takes effort and energy. Yeah. So that was the magic for me when I connected to the leverage in what you said. It's like, man, yes, Erica, yes, because that's what you were implying, right?
It is. I think the part that was kind of new, or just a different perspective on it for me, was the concept of the way that that affects our interactions, specifically when we're trying to create a space where we want other people to feel comfortable and confident in sharing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
we're being overly humble and not displaying a trust in our own being,
Right. Right.
that will not only make other people not particularly trust us or want to share, but it could also kind of make that be the theme of the space. The other person,
Yes. Yes.
the other person's lack of trust in themselves as well.
Exactly. So we have a responsibility to create an environment of trust, which means we have to have confidence, because it's very hard to create trust without confidence. So it's our responsibility, our ethical responsibility to do so. Yeah. Wow. I love this. I absolutely love this. And this is what what I'm so enjoying, because now the things are starting to fall together of everything we did before. They're very subtle, they're very nuanced, but I'm hearing it back from you now. Say, man, I feel very confident now that that subtlety and nuance is something that you can use and understand and apply because of this, right? It's very cool, because it's very hard. This is so subtle. It's very difficult to communicate. All right, keep going, please. Wow, that was huge. So fantastic.
Are you for real invested in others? If not, why not? Do you have to be? How much is necessary? Why does being invested matter to you personally in the context of your own learning and growing?
That last point. Oh, that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Yes, I would say, let me answer this on Erica Jayne's behalf. Is Erica Jayne for real invested in others? Yes, absolutely. Always? No, not necessarily. As appropriate? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If not, why not? Well, because effort reward, and there's too much time, and too little time, too much to do. So appropriateness, right? Do you have to be? No, absolutely not, right?
Right.
It's choice. And you're aware that you don't have to be. That's why I'm answering on your behalf. You don't have to be, right? You know you don't have to be, and you're aware of it. How much is necessary? Well, as appropriate, right? Why does being invested matter to you personally in the context of your own learning and growing? This I'm keen to hear. So please, this one I'm not going to say on your behalf. I just wanted to skip those to get to this one, but I don't want to neglect them either.
Um, well, I was trying to think about answering this question from the perspective of it specifically talking about being invested in others.
Yeah,
So, why does being invested in others matter to you in the
yeah,
context of your own learning and growing?
yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is just the interconnectedness of all of us, that
Yes.
my investment
Yes.
in learning and growing of others is also an investment in my own learning and growing.
Yes.
Um, and that's really what sharing is to me. If we're all
Exactly.
the results of our learning and growing with each other, then
Exactly.
we're building that.
Yeah.
The sum is more, what is it? The sum is more than the parts, or whatever that
Yes.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yes. Now, that question, it's there's more to it, which is why I got so excited about it. And that last, why does being invested, I should emphasize invested. Why does being invested matter to you personally in the context of your own learning and growth? Why? Because of pertinence and relevance. What is pertinence and relevance but leveraged emphasis, right?
Okay.
So when I'm invested, now I've put into that. So I'm paying more attention to it. It's more pertinent and more relevant to me. And therefore I'm leveraging emphasis to connect to see, to perceive, to acquire, to have come at me learning and growing as it connects to me. I don't know what it is, but because I'm invested, my attention assumes there's going to be, right? Because, well, I'm invested, there must be. So now whatever I'm perceiving is automatically made pertinent and relevant simply because I've invested in it.
Right, right.
Yeah. I mean, think of it when you buy stocks in companies, you might, go to your stockbroker and say, well, pick a stock for me, whatever, and they pick one. And okay. But now that you're invested it, you start paying attention to them a bit more.
Right.
I mean, in a very simple, financial investment sense, this happens. Okay, I'm invested in this company, so I start paying attention to what they do and their ethics and their products and whatever. But this is the same for us personally. When we're invested, we pay more attention, and it's relevant and pertinent to us. At least so we believe. But we are leveraging it, and therefore leveraging the emphasis. Simply through investing, we make it pertinent and relevant, even though it might not be.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this
It's
question
fascinating.
meant invested in general. It didn't really have anything to do with the previous about being invested in others. This was
Right.
invested.
Right.
As
Exactly. Yeah. So you know what? Good point there. Let's do it like this. Yeah. Give that little break there to just, otherwise it's by implication being invested in others, right? But now it's actually, you know what? Since I have the space to do this, I can, oh, that's not what I want. I want to do it like that. Yes.
right.
So it's loosely connected, but yeah, it's a new point. Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, good point. Good point to make that distinction between the two. Yeah. Yes. And of course, this applies when it's with others. In the context here. Yes. Wow. The light made it look like I had something stuck here on my side. Um, uh, but yeah, this applies to anything, not just to others. Yeah, I mean, it literally applies to absolutely anything, and it's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. Okay, go over an interaction where you had something on your mind or heart, and where someone was giving you their full and undivided attention, and consider how appropriate it felt to share and release. Relate this from your side, and simply, again, this is one of those exercises to do it from the inside, and it is very useful and valuable. Yes.
True.
Yeah. I mean, you've shared too many times on something similar to this, but unless you have something that jumps to mind, other than that, don't worry.
No specific examples coming to mind.
Yeah. But it's powerful when you realize that you have that freedom to share.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the attention is there. I don't feel inhibited. That's the bigger part too of the full attention. I don't feel inhibited. I don't feel constrained. I don't feel like I don't have the license to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I see this all the time, this concept of license. It's a very, very powerful power conception to have license to do things. We need that license so often. We shouldn't, but we do. And this full attention gives license to full sharing, to full and complete sharing. Yeah. I see this all the time, actually, when people come and participants, but now they've got a personal problem. Yes. Okay, I'm dealing with Bay or whatever. All right. And they don't feel they have license to share because it's not directly connected to whatever we're doing, but yet it is, right? So this is something to overcome. I have to really convince them that no, absolutely you do. It takes quite a lot of work sometimes to overcome that resistance, that obstacle of license, where they don't feel they have license to share. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like sadness. Somebody was all immersed in sadness. And they didn't want to come on Zoom and talk about it because they didn't think that, well, a lot of factors involved, but mainly license. Right. Will you read, please, Erica?
Emphasis, immersion, and deliberate attention are magic to train the brain. But of course, like any magic, it has to be responsibly used. Attention and emphasis have to be responsibly and appropriately focused. The brain discriminates not, saving and storing only based on attention and thus the implied emphasis.
Yes. The brain discriminates not, saving and storing only based on attention and thus the applied emphasis. Yes. Yeah. Even if we don't give attention directly, the emphasis is implied attention, and attention is implied emphasis. So it works both ways. Yeah. It's fascinating how the brain works. Fascinating. Wow, what a nice picture, yes?
It is. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Erica Jayne kicking up her heel. Oh, please go ahead.
What's our intent when it comes to an interaction? We are so far looking to emphasize appreciation, to capital H hear another, and pay exquisite attention. To what end? We aim to hear more, to notice more, connect to more. We aim to enable ourselves to become more aware of more. We're making a subtle distinction here. Our attention is more than just noticing and observing. It's more than the implications communicated to others involved in our interaction.
Wow. Wow. So now I'm keen to go to the next slide. I want to see what you're talking about here. Yes? And you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. We aim to hear more, to notice more, connect to more. We aim to enable ourselves to become aware of more. Yes. Shift our expectations. We're making a subtle distinction here. Our attention is more than just noticing and observing. Absolutely. It's more than the implications communicated to others. That's the part that I'm surprised at. This almost seems like the conclusion, right? You know what I mean? If you take that last sentence, it would seem to be that this is where the previous sentences were leading to, right? To say that.
It sounds like a leading sentence to me, like I'm expecting
Correct. But I'm saying the way it's written is leading you to say, well, we're still going somewhere else. But if you write that sentence to be like, we're making our attention is more than just noticing and observing. It's the implications communicated to others involved in interactions. That's what's the more. You see what I mean? That could have been the conclusion, but it's not. It's now part of this leading to somewhere. That's what's surprising me. To say, oh, wow, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah. See, here it comes. Now I see where I'm heading with this. I did not know where I was heading to it. Normally I can, I kind of, if I start elaborating on this, all right, I didn't get into it, but still, yeah. Now I see where the more is. Yes, you too?
Well, I haven't read it yet. I don't know.
Sorry. I thought you'd already read it.
I didn't. When we apply our full and complete attention, something more happens. We also engage our intent.
Yes. So now that last sentence, it's the lead into the more, right? It's not the conclusion. It could be a conclusion, but there's even more. That would be a moreness, right. But there's a moreness on top of moreness now, which is intent. Yes. Wow, I love that. Yeah. Please keep going. This is exciting.
By implication to ourselves, to the moreness of everything, when we give our full attention, we are saying, this is important to me, very important, this matters. We thus engage our intent. We aim to be sophisticated with our intent by setting the intent to hear more, to notice more, to have more surface come to us, be extracted, and otherwise come to our attention in ways not normally available. Okay.
My brain jumped into a whole other sidetrack. Wow. By saying this is important to me, very important, this matters. At some point in our, well, at least, I don't know, for I should say, it just made me realize, I think that And there was a personal connectivity to say that, on a very deep level, I don't particularly feel my existence is important.
Right.
If this is my existence, I can say, well, this is important to me. No, not really. Very important. No, not really. No, not really.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, do I really matter? No.
Right.
That's a big point, because yes, we do. It's like that example that I continually use for others to say, open up your old chronometer. I can't say watch anymore because, well, if you do it with a digital watch, you don't get the effect. Yeah. So an old style watch, analog watch, and take out the tiniest little gear and see what happens. Obviously, the watch stops working. Yes.
Right.
Now, that technical side of me, Mr. A says, yeah, look, that line in the watch, it was a spaceship, any part of the spaceship, and there will be a will take this place of it, and it will continue to work. Because you don't know where you're going to get hit in battle, so you cannot have that. That makes you vulnerable, right? But I don't think that applies to the universe. Yes, to a certain extent, but in another way, I do feel we are important, but I don't necessarily make that connection with myself, just through excessive humility again, and overview perspective to say, well, I want in this world, would it really make a difference? As far as I know, it won't. But that's the point of the Seeds of Goodness story. Yes, the solitary tree didn't see. There were no trees around it, but yet it kept producing seeds, and those seeds take root. And the whole point is that they can exist elsewhere. Not that they did, but that they can. That's what gave the solitary, when it realized that they can exist elsewhere, they said, I'm alone no longer. The knowledge of possibility made them say, because it's just possible. So I matter because of possibility, not because of actuality. That's pretty huge.
It is. It's true.
That's pretty huge. So the universe says, yes, you matter because you're putting out seeds of goodness. Who the hell knows whose seeds of goodness are going to land in a fertile thing and grow? This is kind of random, but if you aren't putting out those seeds, it may just be that your seed is the seed that's needed. We're not saying it is, but it might be. It's the possibility. That's the important thing, not the actuality. Yes. So everything matters that's putting out seeds of goodness. Matter. They really, really do matter. It is very important. Wow. Wow. So matter is in this case, I'm connecting matter to potentiality, to possibility. Yes? To could, not to is. Yes? I have no idea, and I cannot possibly, like the solitary tree, it cannot possibly imagine where its children are growing and taking root. Yes? That story, I want to do a capital H reading of that story at some point, and I would very much like to have, as many involved like yourself now, to really get into this, because that story has so much to it. It's such a simple story on the surface, but oh my goodness, it's a huge story. Yeah, a huge story. Yeah. Like this point now. It's just very interesting. I never thought like that consciously. It just pulled it up out of me to say this is a legacy perspective that's still lurking about there. At some point in my life, in making peace with death, I said, yeah, so what? If I live or don't live, it doesn't matter to me. I'm at peace with death because of that. But yet it has other consequences in terms of my intent, because now this is connected to intent. It's the connectivity that made a difference to me. Yes. Because if I don't feel that I'm important to me and my existence is important and matters, well, then my intent to foster and perpetuate and maintain my existence is compromised.
Right.
It's diminished in some way. Yes, I might have an intent to exist, but and to survive, but not necessarily to thrive or just other things. I might intend other things, but not necessarily things that foster and support my existence itself. That's quite a huge deal. Wow. Sorry, that was very personal now, but okay, I'm trying to focus on what's personal to you. But it's just interesting. I want to share this because I want to illustrate the cognitive associative process. In other words, I had the main themes going, but these soul stitching things from the side came in and they bind it together. And you see there's a break. Oh, I see now why this thing is folded back on itself. Ah, okay, because of an inadvertency. Yeah. Wow. All right, very cool. Where were we? We aim to be sophisticated with our intent by setting the intent to hear more, to notice more, to have more surface come to us, be extracted, and otherwise come to our attention in ways not normally available. That's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened when I read that. And it was the intent part that I was very connected to that. But again, usually like I read a slide and then I start commenting on it, and when I'm commenting, it comes in the next slide. In this case, not. So there was something missing. There was like on this beam that's incomplete. It was incomplete. Wow. All right, what do you take from this, Erica Jayne?
From your takeaway or from the slide?
Both.
Well, from what you were saying, it made me think of something I was thinking about last night after reading some of Eckart's stuff that is kind of related to the concept of, he wasn't really talking about people mattering per se, but I realized last night that I was forming a sort of general takeaway of a lot of what he was saying to be, he talks a lot about form and content versus, I'm trying to think of the word that he uses. He uses a good word. What does he say? It's not, idea is sort of possibility. There is the world of form, the world of content, the sort of materialization of being. And then there's the reality of I think that's what he says, the unmanifested. That there's a realm of nothing, no kind of deal. And I was kind of thinking back over what all of the different things that I've been listening to from his books and what I feel like he's getting at. And one of the big main points to me is that what he's saying is that nothing matters, but not from a like nihilistic perspective.
Yes.
Like no thing matters. And that includes, I mean, that would include our form, right? If you were talking about death and everything.
Yes.
The thing is not what matters, it's the being behind it. And we talked, I mean, to me, part of what I put in my takeaway was that, I mean, if you look at it from a certain perspective, like what you were saying with, am I important in the grand scheme of things? There's multiple ways you can sort of look at that. And on the one hand, it sounds sort of pessimistic and it could be taken as a nihilistic sort of viewpoint that nothing matters. But from a different viewpoint, and the one that I think is his intent, it's a freedom. And he says multiple times throughout his books, stop taking things so seriously. You don't need to take all of these things so seriously. because like things, right? Stop taking things so
Yes. Yes.
forms, content, stop taking things so seriously, because in the grand
Yes.
scheme, the things are not what matter. There's a beingness behind it that really matters. Um, so,
Don't give your GPU a precedence.
right, right. Yeah, so that was what my brain kind of connected to, and what you were saying, that
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
whole concept of, in the grand scheme of things, do I matter, and all of that.
Yes.
I think,
And how does that connect to your? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think I lost my train of thought. Um,
Sorry. 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 Sorry.
uh, I think there is a freedom in that. There's a
Mm,
letting
mm.
go of sort of unnecessary pressure on yourself, maybe. That it's not that you don't matter in the grand scheme of things, you do, but
Yeah.
perhaps not in the way that we all tend to think we do, right? We
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
matter,
It's huge. It's huge to say you matter, but you also don't matter.
right? I think,
Because if you matter, then there's the implied responsibility.
right. I think we matter in our being, not necessarily in our doing. I mean, our doing matters, but more so as a reflection of our being than the actual doing itself.
Yes. Yes, that's a huge, huge point there. Very subtle point, but huge. Also, how does this connect to this understanding? What is the implied intent that is associated, generated, and connected to it, and generated from it by implication, by association?
What is the implied intent from all of this?
Yes. Yes. In other words, if I feel that, yes, I matter and I don't matter, if I don't matter, I may have an associated intent that says, well, if I don't matter, then I don't need to be getting stuff, and uh, I don't have to have stuff coming at me or whatever, and because, well, I don't matter, I'm nothing, so I don't have to have moreness come at me. So I may have an inadvertent intent of disconnecting moreness coming at me because, well, I don't matter. See, so it's important to say, yes, we matter and we don't matter, because like you said, if I only matter, I have too much responsibility. If I don't matter, well, then it's nihilistic.
Right.
So it's to have both together is very important, because there's an intent that goes along with it. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything has implied intent. Everything. I feel that when we look at particles, in the end, the smallest possible particle is going to be energy, and that energy is intent.
Right.
When you look at particles and physics from an intent perspective, everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts falling into place. That all the energy, like this, this is a representation, the inside of what your character would look like if you could see energy directly, potentially, right? And I feel that, when you see that these all have an intent to them, it all changes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic when you start to look at and to understand that energy and intent is really synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if energy can exist without intent. I
Right.
don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's really interesting.
Very, very. What a point to end on, because I feel like it's like we're moving out. We're moving out into the universe, right? We started something, and it's like we just launched our ships out into the new galaxy now, right? I've got lots to think about. Lots to think about. Lots to think about. Oh, I'm looking forward. If more comes on this, do me a favor and note it down, please.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big topic, and I really want to get into it more. Very profound topic, very deep topic. The connectivity between intent and our beliefs of matter and not matter.
Right.
Literally and in the figurative, right? I
Right.
mean, literal matter and matter as in importance.
Right.
What a topic. What a topic. What a topic. So yeah, I'm very keen to hear more. Very keen to hear more. Very, very keen. Guillermo. All right. Wonderful, Erica Jayne. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'll see you next time. I just love this. This is too
Okay.
fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. You know, we can so easily forget there's more, and there's always more.
True.
Yeah, yeah. Very powerful, very powerful, very powerful. Okay, wonderfulness, wonderfulness. I shall see you. I shall see you.
Okay, I will
And
catch up with you on Tuesday.
yes, yes, I look forward to it. Bye bye, Erica. Bye bye, bye bye, bye
Bye, Sue.
bye, bye bye, bye bye.